Well, I love this generation. I do. I believe they're going to make such a difference in this world. I really believe it. And I think the opportunity's there for the grabbing. But right now, people are hungry for truth and the gospel, and they're hungry for hope, and the gospel gives both of those.
Welcome you guys to another Passages episode. I'm here with one of my professors here, Dr. David Wheeler. He is the evangelism professor here at Liberty and a personal mentor of mine. So I asked him if we could sit down and have a conversation and just talk about, different things that have to do with evangelism, because it can often be a kind of difficult topic to talk about and especially apply in our lives as we really get down to what it actually looks like for us to start doing evangelism. And so me and him are just gonna have a conversation, and we're gonna learn kind of together what it means to evangelize and how we can do that as college students or people in their 20s, 30s, and what that looks like in our lives. So thank you for coming, Dr. Wheeler. We're super glad to have you. So I was looking through a couple different verses and different stories of evangelism or serving others for the purpose of evangelism. Mm-hmm. And even when I was taking your class, you're talking about a lot of different ways that you can plan to get involved in serving evangelism with events and different things that you can set up to do. So kind of walk through how those can be helpful, and then what's the transition from that to it becoming more of a lifestyle?
Okay, I think John chapter 4 is a key passage for me. What did Jesus do with the woman at the well? He listened to her, those kind of things. And if you read through that slowly, what Jesus does is he kind of outlines his approach to evangelism. He approaches this, first off, he intentionally goes into Samaria. He's willing to trust, even though I'm sure his disciples didn't want to go with him. He's at a well in the middle of the day with a harlot woman, with her head uncovered. A Samaritan woman. Right. And he speaks to her. He has a conversation.
And seeks her out.
Yes, he does. He's willing to drink from the same dipper. He asks her for a drink, and she says, well, you don't have anything to draw with. Well, pull it up and we'll both drink from the same dipper, you know. I think the idea of serving people goes back to the kind of what Jesus did there, listening to what people say. Yeah. So often, people will tell you their needs. A lot of times, if you'll just stop and listen, we're so quick to speak, not slow to speak. We're so quick to speak. But from a personal perspective, it really starts with you and I, where we are. How do you serve your neighbor? I'll give you a good example. We moved in a community here, and we began to get to know our neighbors around us. We found out the neighbors next to us, Debbie started asking them questions. Hey, what can we do? What do you need help for? Yeah. We baked cookies for them. We baked cakes for them. We took it to our neighbors around us. All this kind of stuff. She found out that our neighbors next to us, they needed someone to pick up their kids from school. So Debbie would go in the afternoon, pick up the kids from school. Next thing we know, they're going to swimming practice. Debbie took them to swimming practice.
That's cool.
Next thing you know, the mom gets pregnant with their next child. When they have them, the first year of that child's life, Debbie kept the child for free for them. Well, in between all of this, we had the opportunity to get to minister to these families, to this family. And next thing I know, I baptized the son. Next thing I know, I baptized the daughter. It took 5 years to finally, the father's a police officer, and we baptized the father. In fact, the son was in my class this last semester. He's now at Liberty.
That's awesome.
It's a cool deal. We live in a culture that is waiting for the church to connect on an incarnational level. We think evangelism is all about the information. It's also about the incarnation of the gospel. Now, we can't just serve people without pointing them to the gospel, but we can't just share with them without, Paul said it this way, he said, I gave you not only the gospel, I gave you my life. I think that's kind of where all this comes from.
Right. From all these stories that you're saying, and these instances where you were able to open up opportunities to share the gospel, you're using service as a way to reach out to these people, to bring down their barriers, so that they say, okay, what's up with this guy and his family? What's different about them? And then in a lot of cases, they come to you asking you from our conversation. But even from what you were saying at the beginning, just asking somebody. Like it's that simple. Like
right.
I feel like a lot of times, personally, I try to guess what's wrong with people. I try to guess and say, oh, how can I serve them without having to talk to them first, so that they're like surprised and then they want. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be like that. And also asking just as an added bonus, like makes it more personal and makes it, more intentional. If you're going and you're trying to fix something that's not broken, then they're just gonna, all right, what are you doing? But
well, think about this, Dave. We don't live in an atheistic generation. We live in a humanistic generation. Now, there's a big difference. Most of our apologetics is focused towards the one who's a full atheist who really don't know Christ. But the truth of the matter is, humanism's the God of the day. And humanism is simply that I've deified myself. I want to be my own God. That's kind of what that is.
Yeah.
I mean, statistics consistently show that well over 70 to 80% of most people in America believe that there's a supreme being. So it's not atheism, it's humanism. Service, so in other words, they believe in some sort of higher being. What service does, it helps you to pinpoint down what makes you different.
Yeah.
What does this? What opens up the conversations for the sake of the gospel? Because here's what I believe. I believe the gospel is so different from anything else. It is truth that if most people really fully understood that every world religion teaches that man can work his way to God. And what did Jesus do? No, God sent himself in the person of Jesus to us.
Yeah.
He covered our sin for us. That's grace, that's mercy. I mean, that's the real picture here of what it is. And so, it is in a humanistic generation, people are watching what you're doing. Come on, all of us have heard people say, well, I used to go to church, but people treated me this way.
Yeah.
Or they're just a bunch of hypocrites.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is that if we got to give them, Jesus said what? To return evil with what? Good. To love them, to care for them. So
much of it too is perspective, like that you're saying, like if you're looking for, hey, how can I serve these people at any given point? Just walking across the campus or anything like that in your neighborhood. If you just have that mindset of what can I be doing to serve, instead of, okay, how can I get here without the least amount of awkwardness or whatever. like it's, when you're able to shift your mindset, it almost becomes like more exciting, like you're looking for ways instead of avoiding, and we wouldn't be doing that if we intentionally thought that's what it meant. That's the word. That was what I was going to say. The key word, if you learn anything out of what we're talking about here, if those who are watching this learn anything, the word intentionality. You got to be intentional. We do what we intend to do. Come on, think about it. People talk about what's important to them, and they do what they intend to do. Yeah. All of us do that. And so, we can say that no, I can't find anybody. Well, right. You've heard me talk about this before. We're called to be fishers of men, right? Well, what do you do when you fish? First off, you got to get your boat out of the garage. You got to take it, or you got to go where the water is. You got to go where the fish are. And then you got to start throwing your nets or casting your line out, right? You're not gonna get one every time. Yeah. No, you keep casting. You keep casting. And you know what? Our job is to cast. God's job is to put the fish on the hook. But you got to intentionally do that. That's what Jesus did when he went to the woman of the well. He intentionally went into Samaria. Yeah. And when you get up in the morning, when you go to breakfast, are you intentionally thinking how you're going to be able to share with the person who's at the restaurant, who's going to wait on you? Or when you go to wherever, when you go to class, are you intentionally thinking, I'm going to have a conversation with the person next to me? I'm going to ask them, what can I pray for you? What's going on? You're on a secular campus. Yeah. You ask someone, hey man, I was just thinking about it. What can I pray for you? Yeah. I mean, it works. People aren't going to turn you down when you ask if you can pray for them. What does that look like? The intentionality. Yeah. First and foremost, we've got to be willing to get engaged, to be engaged with other people's lives. You go eat lunch and you walk in, you sit with the same group every time. How about sitting with a different group? Yeah. I walked into one of our areas here a while back, and I saw one of my students who, the student had a disability, and really sweet student, and very, very sweet student. But every day when I walked in, the student was sitting by themselves.
And so I walked by this table, and this table looked at me and yelled, "Hey, Dr. Wheeler, good to see you." Come on. I walked over there and started talking to them. I said, "Listen, when I leave, would you do me a favor and go invite that student over there to be a part of your friend group? Because every day when I walk through here, nobody's talking to that student."
Yeah.
It's intentionality. I mean, I think right now more than ever, just picking up your phone and going through your list of names and texting people and saying, I've been thinking about you, I'm praying for you today. Because you don't realize how discouraged people are right now. You don't realize, I mean, come on, the suicide hotline went up within a few months after COVID started last year, about 60%, most people said. You know, think about that.
Yeah.
How can we be an encouragement to people? You know, writing them a note. I mean, you can look at my phone, man. I've sent more texts this year, more emails this year, made more phone calls this year.
Yeah.
You know, and just look for those opportunities.
Even just like a little, like a text to somebody maybe you went to high school with, haven't been in contact with, or, you know, obviously everyone has their, you know, probably dozen people that, you know, they haven't talked to in a while that just that text could
and when you think about
show
this,
intentionality. Yeah,
that's right. And think about this, Dave. What if they've got a family member who's dying of COVID?
Yeah.
And you know, look around this. I mean, one of the things I noticed in my class is I had one girl that saw her 84-year-old uncle come to Christ.
Wow.
You know, she'd been sharing the gospel with him for years. She's 18 years old.
Wow.
She said because of COVID, he started listening because he faced his mortality.
Yeah.
When he came to Christ, over the phone, by the way, the first thing he said was, "I've got a really good friend who needs to hear this too. Can you call him and tell him?" I had another online student, saw her 93-year-old father come to Christ. He had been belligerent to the gospel for years. And she said when he started facing his mortality, you know, and he started thinking about this, he wept as he came to Christ. Think about it. Get on Facebook and look at all your friends. Some of them's got thousands of friends. And look at him and you've not talked to in a while. Yeah. And just send him a note.
So that about wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for joining us as we just get to sit here and have a conversation about what being a servant and what evangelism looks like in you know, the world of a young adult. So thank you, Dr. Wheeler, for coming and being with us. We appreciate it and look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Well, I love this generation. I do. I believe they're going to make such a difference in this world. I really believe it. And I think the opportunity's there for the grabbing. But right now, people are hungry for truth, the gospel. They're hungry for hope, and the gospel gives both of those. So, man, thank you for asking me, Dave. I appreciate it very much.
Definitely. Thank you guys for watching, and we hope to see you next time.